Thank you, Kelsey, and thank you all for joining today. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about what a wellness vision is and what it can do for you. And then I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a wellness vision for yourself. So I am going to be pausing pretty frequently during this. This isn't just a talk where I'm talking at you. This is really for you to kind of think about how you're going to put these things that we're talking about into play in your own life. So you will, if you don't have one already, want to have a pen or a pencil and some paper, or if you're more tech savvy than I am, your computer or a smartphone or something that you can kind of jot down some notes on as we're going through all of this. So I will also be taking myself off camera as I'm kind of pausing and letting you think about those things, just so you're not feeling like I'm sitting there staring at you while you're thinking. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Okay. So there we go. So I like to talk a little bit about why would you want to create a wellness vision? And to take a step back, I think being healthy is important for everybody, but it's especially important if you have MS. Your brain is already kind of trying to overcome the damage that's being done by MS, and so kind of giving it the best opportunity to function optimally is the idea behind health and wellness in MS. So we want to kind of give your brain that chance, and then also prevent the development of any other diseases like diabetes or heart disease or hypertension. So why create a wellness vision? I think it can be really easy to lose sight of the reason why you want to make behavior changes or why you want to make health behavior changes. And if you don't keep that big picture in sight, it can be really easy to make the day-to-day decisions on your health. So maybe it's whether or not you have an apple or a bag of chips, or whether you go for a walk or go sit down and watch a half hour of something on Netflix. It can be easy to make those decisions based on kind of what you want in the moment. So the idea of creating a wellness vision is really trying to think about what you want, get a clear picture of where you want to be, and then kind of define what behaviors are going to help you reach that goal and get you where you want to be. So a good wellness vision essentially gives you a framework for goal setting, and then it also helps empower you and keep you motivated. So I use this picture of a road kind of that splits and goes two different directions, because I think if you don't think about it and you don't think about your long-term goals, it can be really easy to kind of make those day-to-day decisions by taking the easy road. Choosing the bag of chips, choosing to sit down and watch another Netflix instead of going for that walk, and take that path of least resistance into a less healthy life. Whereas if you have a wellness vision, you can kind of look into your future, decide what you want, and then pick the path that's really going to help get you there. And one of the things I like to think about with this is I think some people think self-control is, deprivation and depriving yourself of things. And I like to think of self-control more as, hey, what are your goals and what do you really want? What's important to you? And making those choices on a day-to-day basis. So what I want you to do, this is a slide of intrinsic values. So kind of your core moral desires, your core values. So what I want you to do is take a look at this slide and think about, and I'm going to have you jot this down, think about the three that are the most important to you. I'm going to pause myself. Oops. I don't actually know how to pause myself here. Let's see. There we go. Okay. You guys, I'm apologizing. Okay, So I want to apologize because I realized I clicked around at first. I didn't realize that I was doing that. So I put it back on the screen where it's intrinsic value. So those are the ones that I want you to think of, kind of those three that are most important to you. So we're going to move to the next page at this point. And I want you to think about the personal characteristics that are most important to you. So the qualities that you really kind of value the most in yourself, and not who you want to be, but who you already feel like you are. So think about the three personal characteristics that kind of mean the most to you, that are the ones you value the most about yourself, and go ahead and jot those down. Okay, so next I want you to think about relationships in your life that are important to you. So think of several relationships that are important, or several people that will help support you in your goals. And this can be totally different for everybody. For some people, it might be a supportive spouse or a supportive parent or child. For some people, it might be a coworker that, you know, if you can join together and bring your lunches instead of going out to lunch with the group to some unhealthy restaurant. For some people, this might be like an online MS support group. For some people, it might be maybe there's a child or a grandchild that doesn't necessarily do anything to support you, but just kind of having them around, you want to stay around and be there for them. So think about several relationships that are important to you, and go ahead and jot that down. And I'm going to give you a moment to do this. Okay, so now what I want you to do is think of times that you've succeeded in the past. And this can take a number of different forms for people too. So maybe this is healthy changes you've already made. Maybe this is a physical challenge you overcame. Maybe it's something at school that you succeeded in, or something at work that you succeeded in, or maybe just a challenge in life that you felt you got through and were successful. So think about several of these successes in your own life and write them down. Give you a moment to do that. Okay, so now I want you to think of those successes and think of what got you there. So think of the strengths that you use to get through or to get to those successes. So this might be that you're stubborn, or that you kind of have a sense of perseverance, or that you're a hard worker. Maybe you're the kind of person who enlists help when you need it. Think about those strengths. What is it that got you through those challenges? What got you to those successes? And I want you to write down 5 of those. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay. So now what I want you to do is think about what you're already doing for your health. So maybe you've already made some healthy changes, or you're already doing certain healthy things. So maybe you're choosing more veggies. Maybe you are eating nuts instead of chips as your snack. Maybe you've added fish to your meals more often instead of steaks. Maybe you're choosing more or less refined grains, more whole grains. Maybe you're stretching or doing yoga, or you have a kind of stress management practice like meditation or breathing. Think about what you're already doing for your health and write that down. Give you a moment to do that. Okay, so hopefully you came up with some things you're already doing for your health at this point. And what I want you to do now is think about what you want to improve. So you came to this talk for a reason. Think about what elements of your health and your well-being you want to work on now. And I'm going to give you a moment to do this, but before I do that, I do want to kind of give you some ideas to start you if you're going, I am not quite sure what I want to work on. You can use these sentences. So I really need to start, and kind of fill in the blank there. Or I would feel better if I, and fill in the blank there. Or to be healthier, I want to, and see if you can kind of end those sentences. And I'll give you a moment to write those things down. So maybe it's to eat more veggies or to cut back on soda or to eat less fast food. Whatever it is for you is fine. Just think about something that you'd like to work on for your health.
Holly, can you ask those questions again, the prompts?
Yes, for sure. So the prompts are, I really need to start. I would feel better if I, or to be healthier, I want to. So now what I want you to do is think about why you want to make this change. So what are kind of the driving forces behind it? So what are the short-term benefits of making this change? What are the long-term benefits of making this change? Would making this change improve any other areas of your life? Would it potentially improve any of your MS symptoms? Think about kind of if it would help you more be aligned with your values, or if it would help kind of be in line with some of the personal characteristics that you appreciate about yourself. So really think about the kind of why do you want to make that change? And I'm going to give you a moment and just kind of write down what your reasons are. Okay. So now what we're going to do is kind of this envisioning process. So this is, I think a lot of people think it's kind of the cheesy part of doing this, but it's really an important part. So hopefully you can kind of stick with me here and do this next exercise. So I'm going to explain it, and then I'm going to put myself on off video and on mute, and then you can kind of go through this process. So what I want you to do when we pause is close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then envision kind of what you picture your ideal best self to be. So this can be, it doesn't have to be next week, it doesn't have to be next month or next year. This can be 2 years down the road or 5 years down the road, but picture a time when you're happy and when you're feeling well and when everything's kind of coming together for you. And so picture that kind of ideal best self. And then once you have a picture of what that person looks like for you, what I want you to do is think about the behaviors, the habits, the actions that this person is doing to achieve that vision. So I'm going to give you a moment to kind of close your eyes and take that deep breath and think about that ideal best self for you. Okay. So now what we're going to do is kind of put some definition to that vision, that wellness vision that you just came up with. So we're going to kind of fill this in backwards, and you guys can just do a real simple table if you're just jotting down notes. But what I want to start with is actually the column that says results. So I want you to think of that ideal best self that you just imagined, and think about what results you were seeing. So maybe it's having your weight under control, or maybe it's being more relaxed. Maybe it's taking that hike you've thought of. Maybe it's improving your energy levels. Maybe it's getting diabetes or hypertension under control. Whatever that is for you, we want to start by putting that in the results area. And I'm going to give you just a moment to do that. So now that you know kind of what the results are, what that wellness, the kind of ideal best self person would be doing, what I want you to do is look at the column of actions and write down kind of the habits or the behaviors or the actions that you will be doing to achieve those results. So maybe to get your weight under control, you've been watching your portion sizes. Maybe to train for that hike, you've been going for walks daily. Maybe to have more energy, you've been cutting out caffeine after 2 p.m. and getting to bed on time. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever would get you the result that you want. I want you to think about some actions that could help get you there, and go ahead and write them down in that first column. Okay, so now we're going to kind of put that together, and you're going to write out your wellness vision. So we do want this to be in the present tense. We don't want this to be, a one-day thing. We want these behaviors to be in the present tense. So look at the actions column. So we're going to write out I am, and then write out some of those actions or habits that would get you towards your goal. And then so that, and then the column from results is where you would pull that. So this might look something like, I'm watching my portion sizes and not eating past the point of fullness so that I feel good at my current weight. I've cut out coffee after 3 p.m. and I'm going to bed by 9:30 each night to get better sleep so I have more energy during the day. Or I'm sneaking in small bits of physical activity throughout the day so I'm exercising more and feeling more energetic. So those are just some examples, but think about how you would kind of write out your actions, I am, and those actions followed by so that, and then the results that you want. So at this point, I'll have you just kind of out loud to yourself, go ahead and read your wellness statement and see how it feels to you. So this is essentially the written version of your wellness vision. So you want it to be motivational and to inspire you to kind of stick with those daily habits and daily activities. So if it's not inspiring, potentially go back and think about what sort of goals would really keep you more motivated. What results are you really wanting? And kind of a bonus activity that we obviously don't have time for today, but if you are a visual person, it can be really helpful to have kind of a vision board. So thinking about the results you want and putting a picture to those. So, maybe if you're, one of the results you wanted was to do a hike, take a picture that you can find online of that hike, or of somebody standing on top of a mountain or something like that. But sometimes for people who are more visual, a more visual version of your wellness vision can be really helpful. So what I want you to do now is think about what steps you're willing to take towards that goal in this next week. And whenever we're setting goals, we want to think about essentially SMART goals. So SMART doesn't mean some of your goals are not smart and they're dumb. SMART is really an acronym. So it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. is essentially what SMART goals mean. So if you think about each of those components, so specific, we don't want to set vague goals. So you don't want your goal to be, I want to eat more vegetables, because at the end of the week, how would you look back and know if you really did that well with the goal? What it might be is something more like, I'm going to add vegetables to lunch every day. Measurable, so again, not something like, I'm going to eat more vegetables. Maybe it's, I'm going to add 1 cup of baby carrots to my lunch 3 days this week. We want it to be attainable, so I don't want you to say, I'm going to add 3 cups of vegetables to my lunch every day. You know, maybe it's, I'm going to add 1 cup of vegetables to my lunch every day. Relevant, so maybe you thought, oh, I'm going to read a new book every week, and that doesn't really have too much to do with health, so trying to keep it more to, it doesn't have to be vegetables, that's just my example today, to something that's more health related. And then time bound, so rather than I'm going to eat more vegetables starting soon, it might be, okay, starting Monday, I'm going to add vegetables to my lunch. So a SMART goal might sound something like, starting on Monday, I'm going to add 1 cup of baby carrots to my lunch 3 times weekly. So like I said, this one was very nutrition focused and vegetable focused. Think about whatever your goals, your vision is, and what first steps you want to take and what SMART goals will get you there. So think about a SMART goal you can work on in the next week. And I'm going to give you a moment to do that. Okay. So now what I want you to do is think about something, one of those items that we talked about earlier. So maybe it's a personal characteristic, or maybe it's a person in your life, but think about something that's going to help you reach those initial goals, help you with that SMART goal. So maybe it's having an accountability buddy, or maybe it's telling your spouse to pick up something from the store. Or maybe it's just knowing that one of those strengths that you talked about that helps get you towards your successes is being a hard worker or a planner. So you're going to plan ahead and figure out what you need to do to meet your goals. So think about whatever that is for you, the person in your life, or the strength that you have, or the personal quality that you have that's going to help you towards your goal. I'm going to give you just a moment to think about that. Okay. And then the last thing I want you to do is think of something that might get in your way. So think of an obstacle or a barrier or something that might come up that might make it more difficult to reach that goal you just thought of. And I want you to think of, if you needed to overcome this barrier, how would you use your strengths, or somebody in your life to help you overcome a barrier that gets in your way of meeting the goal that you've set for yourself. I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. So I like to end on a little joke. So this is a guy talking to his doctor, and the doctor is saying the handle on your recliner does not qualify as an exercise machine. So thank you very much for coming to this webinar, and hopefully you're kind of leaving here today with a little bit more motivation and some more clearly defined goals to start working towards. And then at this point, I am going to stick around and answer some questions if you guys have some.
Thank you so much, Holly. If you have a question to submit, please use the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, I also wanted to suggest, now that you've developed your wellness vision, you might consider checking out the previous webinar in this series called Sticking With It, Real-Life Strategies to Help You Form and Keep Healthier Habits, all about how to form healthier habits. So now you've identified some things that you might want to change in your life. We did have a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time, so I'll go through those. We had someone ask, how do you stay focused?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. One of the things that I think with staying focused is key is kind of planning in advance and keeping those bigger goals in mind. So that's actually why I wanted to do this talk today, is I think it can be really tough to stay focused if you're just trying to do so without the bigger picture in mind. But if you have kind of those goals you're aiming towards and you know what you want your future to look like, I think that can be helpful in keeping you focused. That and planning, but I also think, and I wanted to say this, like nobody's on all the time. So I think also giving yourself a break when you have done something that wasn't necessarily in line with your goals, giving yourself a break and kind of moving on from there and restarting.
So we had a question submitted kind of in a very similar vein. Once you realize you have a lack of motivation, how do you, what's a good kickstart for motivation?
So I think some of the stuff that we did today, but I also think accountability is huge, and that really can't be understated. So I think finding somebody that's, you know, working towards similar health goals that, and I think that can be tough because sometimes if you find some accountability buddy, but then they decide to like throw you off track or sabotage you, that can be a little tough if they're like, no, let's go get chocolate cake. But I think if you can find somebody who you can really work with, and if that's not, you know, a family member or a friend, you know, finding a coach or somebody that can help you kind of stay motivated and keep that motivation, because I think that really is an important part. But I think thinking about long-term tends to be more helpful. I think sometimes short-term goals almost tend to throw people in a different direction. So looking at weight versus overall healthy eating, you know, what are your outcomes that you really want that are going to keep you motivated in the long run?
How often would you recommend checking back in with this plan to update or modify it?
I think as often as you need to kind of, if it's not motivating you, that's when I'd say check back in. As far as kind of the week-to-week goals, I think that's something you can kind of do, you know, every week or every couple week basis. But I think that wellness vision is hopefully something that keeps you motivated for a longer time frame. But if you find I don't care, that doesn't really motivate me anymore, that's when I'd kind of go back and go through these exercises again and say, okay, like what do I really want my future to look like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road?
We have a couple of resource questions. So I'll just kind of group them all together and let you answer them. We had one person who finds nutrition to be kind of the most challenging in terms of you know, figuring out what the right thing to eat, adding all of the difficulties of preparing ahead food or MS fatigue or heat intolerance. Actually, I'll leave that as one question.
Okay. So I think that's kind of a few different things to cover. So as far as resources, I've done some other talks that are definitely more, this was kind of a general focus talk, so it wasn't telling you, hey, here's how you should eat. I've done some other talks on nutrition for multiple sclerosis, specifically on the Mediterranean diet. And then I've also done one on, you know, kind of diet and supplements, and those ones are available. And I wrote down, so I'm gonna look at my little notes here, mscenter.org, and then if you search for Holly, You can find those. There's some videos, there's some articles that kind of cover a little bit more about the specifics of healthy eating. You had also mentioned in that question heat intolerance and multiple sclerosis. So I know this time of year it's already like 90 something. I don't know what today is. I haven't been outside, but it's like 90 something degrees half the days this week at least. So not wanting to turn on the oven. I think looking at some of those other ways of cooking. So are there foods that you can kind of microwave easy? Can you use a crock pot to get at least a portion of your meal done? Do you have an Instapot or an air fryer? So looking at some of those options that don't make you turn on the oven in 90-degree heat can be helpful. And I did like, I think you said something about kind of bulk preparation, Kelsey, is that right?
Yeah, the preparing ahead kind of to deal with MS fatigue at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that is really key. So if you can just make, if you have a recipe that stands up okay as leftovers, making, multiple portions of that, and that might be to have a couple days later. It might be something, if it's something you can freeze, that you can then freeze and thaw later. My other thought with that is know some healthier kind of takeout restaurants. I think there actually are probably more restaurants doing takeout now than ever before, but know some kind of healthier options that are near you. That way, if you're really not feeling like you can make a meal today, that can be a good option. And I did want to mention there is a group, if you're in either the Denver area or the Colorado Springs area, there's a group called Project Angel Heart out there. So for people who are kind of struggling to get a meal on the table with everything else that's going on and with medical issues, they're a great resource. They're basically just based on disease or condition and where you live in the Denver area or the Colorado Springs area. So there's not like an income need or anything like that. They're just there to kind of help people who might need that extra level of support. And they basically make a bunch of meals in their facility and then deliver them frozen to individuals that need them. So the name's Project Angel Heart. So that's something that could be worth looking into if you're really struggling to get meals on the table.
Do you have any resources or recommendations for kind of adaptive exercise classes?
Ooh. I do not, but Kelsey, I might actually see if you do, because I know Jeff, Dr. Jeff Hebert has done a lot of that for the MS Wellness pilot program. I don't know if he has recommended any adaptive exercise stuff for you guys to share.
Yeah, so we actually have quite a few resources on our website. We have a few presentations just talking about the importance of exercise from Dr. Hebert, as well as we have a seated workout, a half-hour seated workout with Michelle Harrison, who is our hydrotherapy coordinator. And that is available through our COVID-19 education page. So if you go to mscenter.org, right on the top, there's a banner for our COVID-19 page. And that page has a wealth of resources. It has the seated workout. It's got the mindful eating exercise that Holly did for us. It's got mental health webinars, leisure, physical activity webinars, and we will be doing a special COVID-19 summit coming up next Tuesday, the 18th, at 5 p.m. And that is a jam-packed program with information, medical information about COVID-19 and MS. It'll have an entire segment on mental well-being. So if you're really stuck in the motivation, feeling defeated kind of phase right now, maybe you start with mental health first as you're building this wellness vision. We're also going to talk about vaccines and DMTs and special considerations for children in COVID. So that is going to be a really exciting evening. You can sign up on mscenter.org for that. It'll be live streamed through Facebook and YouTube. But we specifically have that seated workout on that COVID education page. Or on our YouTube, you can also check for those. And then another resource that's available on that COVID page is a spreadsheet that has a ton of resources for COVID. It's got information about COVID, it's got information about emergency food services, and it's got an entire section devoted to exercise classes basically online, and several of them are adapted as well. So I would check out that COVID-19 page, and we will try to send out as many of these links as we can in the follow-up email. so that you can find those quickly. But mscenter.org, using the banner or the search bar to find the things that Holly has submitted. Let's see, we also, we've had a couple of questions come in about whether you do one-to-one sessions or how they can get nutrition help.
Yeah. So I am actually only working in very specific clinics at UC Health right now. So we are working on a kind of another phase of the MS Wellness program. So I think keep in touch with Kelsey and the group on when that might be rolling out. But in the meantime, you could see a dietitian at Integrative Medicine through UC Health. The dietitian there is Christina Comer, and she's excellent. And I've got the number here. It's 720-553-2750. So I'll repeat that again in a second. But they do accept some insurances, and they can kind of figure that out for you. So that would be a good place to start, I think, for seeing somebody to talk about nutrition. So again, that number is 720-553-2750.
Excellent. And then I did have a request for you to go over the SMART goals, what that stands for again. And I did also want to remind folks, this is being recorded. So you'll get the link in your email, and then you'll be able to kind of go through the entire program as often as you would like to update your wellness vision.
So S is specific. Sorry. We'll just go through them. So S is specific, M is measurable, A is attainable, R is, and now I'm forgetting, sorry, they are different ones for these ones, so I'm gonna pull it up. R is relevant. So that was the one where you don't want to read your book as a health goal. And T is time bound.
Awesome. And that is all of the questions that we have time for today. So I do want to thank everyone for sticking with us, and I want to thank Holly for your time today. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.